Stop looking at the music charts. The music charts are a distraction. If you want to understand how a girl from an island with a population smaller than Wichita, Kansas became America's youngest self-made female billionaire, you have to ignore the Grammy Awards. Here is the number that matters: $1.4 billion. That is not from selling albums. If Rihanna relied only on her music royalties, she would be rich, yes, but she wouldn't be a titan. She wouldn't be sitting at the table with the masters of the universe. The truth is, for the first 10 years of her career, she was working for money. But in 2017, she flipped a switch that most artists never find. She made money work for her. And she did it by exploiting a massive mistake that the entire beauty industry was too blind to see. But before the private jets and the LVMH partnerships, there was just Robyn. Growing up in a bungalow in Bridgetown, Barbados, her life wasn't a music video. It was survival. Her father battled addictions that tore the peace of the home apart. Money wasn't tight. It was a daily puzzle. To help make ends meet, she wasn't singing in stadiums. She was standing on the hot pavement of a street stall, selling clothes with her father. This is the part of the story most people gloss over, but it is the most important. Why? Because standing there, watching people buy, watching people haggle, she wasn't just a kid. She was learning the raw mechanics of retail. She was learning what people want and how they look when they find it. She didn't have a Harvard MBA. She had the street stall. She saw that fashion wasn't just fabric. It was an armor. It was a way for people to feel like someone else, even just for a moment. That desire to escape, to transform, that was the seed. But the path to water that seed was going to be much harder than she thought. She gets discovered. We know that part. Jay-Z signs her. She explodes onto the scene. Pon de replay. Umbrella. She becomes a global icon. But here's the secret trap of the music industry that keeps famous people broke. When you sign a record deal, that big check they give you, it's a loan. You have to pay it back. You are an employee of the label. You tour until your feet bleed. You sell merchandise. You do interviews, and you keep a percentage. Rihanna was working harder than anyone in the game, album after album, tour after tour. She was a machine. But she looked at her bank account, and then she looked at the owners of the record labels, the owners of the cosmetic companies, the owners of the fashion houses. The gap was astronomical. She realized that being the face of a brand, like she was for CoverGirl or Gucci, was a sucker's game. You get a fee. They get the equity. They get the generational wealth. You get a paycheck. She was tired of being the employee. She wanted to be the owner, but how do you cross that bridge when the world only sees you as a singer? The shift started with a sneaker. When Puma approached her, they were struggling. They needed cool. They needed relevance. Rihanna didn't just want to wear the shoes, she wanted to design them. She became the creative director. This was the test. Could her name actually move product? The answer was a resounding yes. The Creeper sneaker sold out in hours. It was a frenzy. But while everyone was celebrating the shoe sales, Rihanna was looking at something else. She was looking at the makeup chair. For years, sitting in makeup chairs for videos and shoots, she noticed something frustrating. Makeup artists, the best in the world, would have to mix 3 or 4 different foundations just to match her skin tone. And if they struggled with her, what about women darker than her? What about the women with albino skin? What about the undertones that the big companies ignored? She started doing the research. The giants of the industry, L'Oreal, Estée Lauder, Revlon, they all followed the same rule. They made products for the middle, the light to medium skin tones. They ignored the edges. They thought the edges weren't profitable. Rihanna looked at those edges and didn't see a niche. She saw millions of women holding their wallets, waiting to be seen. This brings us to 2017, the launch of Fenty Beauty. But wait, this wasn't just another celebrity slapping their name on a lipstick. This was a tactical strike. She partnered with Kendo, a division of LVMH. She brought the vision, they brought the infrastructure. But the risk was entirely on the concept. She demanded to launch with 40 shades of foundation on day one. 40 shades. The industry insiders whispered that it was crazy. Store shelves don't have space for 40 shades, they said. Inventory cost will be too high, they said. Focus on the best sellers. Rihanna ignored them. She knew that if a woman walks into a store and can't find her shade, she doesn't just leave the foundation, she leaves the brand. She wanted everyone included, not as a charity, but as a business strategy. She called it Beauty for All. When the teaser trailer dropped, it didn't feature just one type of model. It featured Slick Woods, Halima Aden, models of all sizes, all colors. It was a celebration of difference. The industry held its breath. Was this going to be a vanity project flop? September 8th, 2017, the doors opened and the world went mad. This wasn't just sales, it was a movement. Women who had never found their color in their entire lives were crying in Sephora aisles. The darker shades, the ones the industry said wouldn't sell, were the first to sell out. In the first few weeks, Fenty Beauty reported $100 million in sales. 100 million? Let that sink in. It took other legacy brands decades to hit numbers like that. Time magazine named it one of the best inventions of the year, but the financial shock was even bigger. Suddenly, Rihanna wasn't just a singer, she was the CEO of a unicorn. The Fenty effect was born. Every other brand panicked. Suddenly, CoverGirl, Maybelline, and Dior were scrambling to expand their shade ranges. They were chasing her. She had disrupted a 100-year-old industry in 30 days. And the money? It wasn't royalties anymore. It was equity value. Her net worth began to climb vertically, but she didn't stop there. She looked at another industry that was ripe for disruption. Victoria's Secret, the undisputed queen of lingerie. For decades, they sold one fantasy, the impossible, angelic, supermodel body. It was a club that most women couldn't get into. Rihanna smelled blood. She saw that the cultural conversation was shifting toward body positivity, but the market leader was stuck in the past. She applied the exact same blueprint from Fenty Beauty to lingerie. Savage X Fenty was born. But this time, the marketing was even more aggressive. The fashion shows weren't just skinny models walking down a runway. They were performances, dancers, pregnant women, plus-size models, drag queens, celebrities of all shapes. It was electric. It made the Victoria's Secret angels look outdated, boring, and out of touch. While Victoria's Secret was closing stores and cancelling their televised show, Savage X Fenty was raising $115 million in funding and reaching a $1 billion valuation. She didn't just beat the competition, she made them irrelevant. She understood that modern luxury isn't about exclusion, it's about radical inclusion. By 2021, the numbers were undeniable. Forbes officially declared her a billionaire. Net worth $1.7 billion. Let's break that down. Roughly $1.4 billion of that came from the value of Fenty Beauty alone. The rest was Savage X Fenty and her music catalog. Think about that ratio. The music, the thing she is most famous for, was the smallest part of her fortune. The side hustles became the main empire. She had surpassed Madonna, Celine Dion, and Beyoncé in wealth, and she did it without touring for 5 years. She did it while retired from music. This proved the ultimate thesis. You cannot sing your way to $1 billion. You have to build, you have to own, you have to scale. She had successfully transitioned from being the talent to being the mogul. So, how can you replicate this? You might not have Rihanna's fame, but the strategy is universal. First, look for the ignored customer. Rihanna found the women the beauty industry forgot. Who is being ignored in your industry? Who is complaining that there is no product for them? That is where the gold is. Second, authenticity is the new marketing. Rihanna didn't just hire a marketing team, she used her own social media to talk directly to fans. She replied to comments, she made tutorials. She was the brand. In 2025, people don't buy from faceless corporations, they buy from people. Third, quality over hype. Fenty Beauty didn't succeed just because it was Rihanna. It succeeded because the product was actually good. If the foundation was bad, people would have bought it once and never again. The hype gets them in the door, the quality keeps them there. And finally, ownership. Fight for equity. If you are starting a business or partnering or creating, make sure you own a piece of the upside. Today, Rihanna lives a life that is hard to comprehend. She creates on her own terms. She released a song for the Black Panther soundtrack after years of silence, simply because she wanted to. She performed at the Super Bowl while pregnant, not for a paycheck. Performers don't get paid for the halftime show, but for the promotion of her brand. During her performance, she paused to touch up her makeup using a Fenty compact. That 3-second moment was worth millions in media value. That is the level she plays at now. Everything feeds the empire. She is a mother now, balancing family with a global conglomerate. She proves that you don't have to choose between being creative and being a shark. You can be both. Rihanna's story isn't about luck. It's about observation. She looked at the world, saw what was missing, and had the guts to build it when everyone else said it was unnecessary. She bet on inclusivity when the world was selling exclusivity, and the market rewarded her with $1 billion. So look around you. What is missing? What are people complaining about? The next $1 billion idea is hiding in plain sight, probably in a problem that annoys you every single day. Rihanna found hers in a makeup chair. Where will you find yours? If you think this transformation was wild, wait until you hear the story of the woman who was fired from a news anchor job for being too emotional and turned that emotion into a media empire worth $3 billion. That story is coming up next. You do not want to miss how failure can be the biggest deposit you ever make. Subscribe and hit the bell. We are just getting started.